All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we're going to look at Ethereum's explosive growth in the ecosystem itself and what you need to understand about this and what that probably means for the price of Ethereum coming up really soon. All right, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a lot of other news updates that have happened in this live stream since our last one we did on Friday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel about 9:30 a.m. Central Time. Just subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications down below. You'll find out about those whenever we go live. We're going to answer some of your questions and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to master blockchain step-by-step, start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Last but not least, nothing I'm saying in these videos is going to be financial advice, and there's lots of scammers down in the comment section below. Just ignore them, like I'll never give you my phone number or ask you to invest with me. So we got people in the chat here. We've got, let's see here, Culture Hives, Nathan, Automatic Beats. So we had a pretty early join here, kind of duking out in the chat. It's awesome. So Mr. D, Francis, Mo Money, Ada, Anthony, welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this. So let's talk about the explosive growth that's happening in the Ethereum ecosystem and what you need to understand about this. Okay, so I'm starting to see a number of metrics inside the ecosystem trend upward for ETH. And usually this is the kind of thing that happens before we see a pretty significant appreciation in the ETH price itself, okay? Lots of new innovation. The long-term thesis on this channel always has been that as you create more technology that has utility where there's actually a significant amount of integration with cryptocurrency with those technologies, that the value can accrue to those cryptocurrencies itself, especially on the Ethereum platform with Ether being the native asset, okay? And so what I'm about to talk about right now are a bunch of different, leaps forward in this space that give the ecosystem more value. That value can actually accrue back to ETH. And I've been talking about this channel, like I said on our live stream on Friday, that I bought more ETH. I think that we're primed for a significant leg up in the overall crypto markets, particularly for the ETH price, relatively soon in the grand scheme of things. No firm timeline on that, but I think we're due for it. So that's what we're gonna look at. Okay. So let's start off one by one here. So the first major thing that I want to talk about is actually layer 2 adoption. So I've got a website pulled up on my screen here. If you can check this out, it's l2beat.com that can help you track this stuff yourself. So the big milestone crossed here is $1 billion locked into, or $1 billion secured by layer 2 scaling solutions on top of Ethereum. And then you can actually see a list of different layer 2 scaling solutions down here, how much they've grown recently. You can see the crazy Arbitrum growth here, along with others, okay? So what is this if you're not familiar? So basically, layer 2 is something that helps make Ethereum faster and cheaper to use, okay? So the whole idea here is that you can create a second layer on top of Ethereum that's actually attached to the blockchain itself, where you can offload some of the activity onto this second layer, okay, and then settle the final result of a bunch of activity all in one go on top of the Ethereum network itself. That's what most of the layer 2 scaling solutions do right now, especially the ones around optimistic rollups, okay? And we've been talking about this a ton because, transaction fees are a major pain point for Ethereum for lots of people, okay? That said about Ethereum being too slow, too expensive to use. Well, layer 2s are really the answer to that. So we're going to have layer 2s even in an ETH 2.0 world, and so you can track what's happening with layer 2s, and we see significant adoption of them, since middle of July here. We're up significantly, all right? We're up about 2x. So we're seeing this grow pretty fast. I've been making lots of videos on this channel about different layer 2 scalings dropping. I've seen Optimism drop, Arbitrum drop. These are two big, pretty prominent scaling solutions that I'm keeping my eye on for sure. And you can see their explosive growth here, okay? So the next metric that I actually want to look at is TVL for decentralized finance, or DeFi. Okay, so we're about to cross the threshold of $100 billion locked in DeFi. And depending on how you measure this and what you count, I think some metrics are actually over $100 billion, but this is the benchmark that I've been using because at the beginning of this year in January, I made a prediction that I said that, we would see $100 billion locked into DeFi by the end of this year in 2021, and we're about to cross this milestone. This was actually the metric that I was using to gauge this. So this is significant. And part of this has to do with, just the value of the assets that are being locked are actually increasing. So you don't need a ton of new deposits in order to just get the same benefit if the entire crypto market's going up. But we are still seeing a significant increase in usage for this type of thing too. And a lot of that's got to do with just the utility technology. We've seen, projects like Aave and others just keep shipping amazing solutions, migrate to other chains, all this type of stuff. Tons of innovation continue to happen in the DeFi space, and that's one of the reasons that we're seeing this, number increase, in addition to the asset prices themselves simply increasing. So, the next thing I want to talk about in ETH is, of course, we have had the EIP 1559 upgrade happen. So now we're burning ETH whenever new transactions are created, okay? And we had our first completely deflationary day since EIP 1559 launched, which is pretty significant for ETH, okay? So if you're not familiar with what EIP 1559 is, it was a network upgrade. So now whenever you create new transactions on Ethereum, and you pay that transaction fee, your fee is going to get split up into two parts, and part of your fee is actually going to get burnt. It's going to erase ETH from the network, okay? And right now, depending on how much activity there is on the network, it's really just offsetting the amount of new ETH that's created with the blockchain, because, right now, as ETH is on proof of work, just like Bitcoin for ETH 1.0, new cryptocurrency is created by the network to help subsidize mining costs. So if you're a miner on the network right now on ETH 1.0, you're getting paid partly from block rewards or block subsidies, and also the fees that people pay whenever they use the network. Now with EIP 1559, first of all, when ETH is created from the network, there's a certain amount every single year, okay, and that's expressed as a percentage of inflation. And right now, with EIP 1559, in general, we're just reducing the rate that new ETH is hitting the blockchain. We're not necessarily deflationary by nature, but we are starting to see, it's largely dependent upon the amount of activity. If Ethereum gets used a lot, then it can become deflationary. But with the rate that new ETH is getting produced right now, it's not consistently deflationary, put it that way. But we did see ETH's first ever completely deflationary day, all right, which is pretty huge for the Ethereum space. Now, the important thing to understand is, ETH is likely going to be deflationary by nature whenever we move to ETH 2.0 and the merge happens to turn on proof of stake on the blockchain itself, okay? So we don't necessarily need for the Ethereum activity to, 10x or something like that to get this benefit of deflationary ETH. Basically, as long as the network activity stays consistent with what it has been, whenever proof of stake gets turned on, it's likely going to be deflationary by nature. And so we can see... So that right there, when I'm talking about the activity that's happening on the Ethereum network, the explosive growth, this is another example of that. We have our first deflationary day, which right now on Ethereum 1.0, in order to get that deflationary nature, you have to see a huge surge in activity around demand. So it could just be that you don't necessarily have to have an increase in the number of transactions as much as the transactions being valuable for people to want to pay a lot of money to actually get their transaction included in blocks. And typically you see those in types of environments where people are trying to make money really fast and guarantee that their transactions actually get included. Because at the end of the day, that's why people are paying the high transaction fees on top of the Ethereum network anyways, because they're making money with them. People talk about, Ethereum's fees being bearish for Ethereum, or saying like, hey, nobody's going to use it because it's got high fees. Well, it's actually the exact opposite. The fees are high because people are using it. They're using it to make significant gains. One of the biggest ways recently is people have been flipping, NFTs like crazy, like making a killing flipping NFTs. So they're gladly, willing to pay those gas fees in order to do that, at least throw their name in the hat for trying to mint an NFT that they think will make them, a lot of money. So we can actually check on the metrics for the Ethereum space in terms of the actual EIP 1559 upgrade. We can see that 215,000 ETH has been burned so far. And if you actually want to do the calculations on that, let's see, 215,000. Let's multiply it. Let's just round the ETH price up to $4,000. So it'll be slightly off, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That doesn't seem right. Hold on. $215,000. Hold on a second. 2, 1. Should probably do the calculation. Let's see here. Six. It looks like we're getting close to $1 billion. I think my math might be a little bit off. I don't know. My brain's not working 100% this morning. We'll go ahead and check back on it. We'll have a prepared statistic for it tomorrow. Somebody can sanity check me on it. If you want to do the calculation down in the chat below and send it to me. I think I was... that scientific calculator, the max, not really good to read. I wish you could put commas in there because I feel like I counted them and the number didn't make sense. So anyways, the whole point is we've burned a lot of ETH. We've burned truckloads of ETH that are worth a lot of money, put it that way. And you can actually see the top gas consumers here. OpenSea, of course. Let me just share my screen again. OpenSea, no surprises here because people are flipping NFTs, ETH transfers. Yeah, you can see specific NFT projects, Uniswap, people trading tokens, loot, more loot. We're seeing lots of stuff come out of the loot space here. So, that being said, lots of them been talking about is basically trending upward and the usage of Ethereum network, which, as I was talking about before, at the end of the day, typically, my long-term piece on this channel is that that activity actually accrues to ETH asset itself. And I do think that we are likely to see an increase in the Ethereum price pretty soon in the grand scheme of things, probably break a new all-time high. Now, there's lots of different reasons why value would accrue to the cryptocurrency itself. One of them is actual adoption and utility of the cryptocurrencies. And one utility of the cryptocurrency itself is store of value and price speculation. So you might reason to say, well, it's really easy to hold that thesis of utility value because in a bull market, when the entire cryptocurrency markets are going up based on speculation and everything's in a speculative bubble, then of course the cryptocurrency prices are going to go up. And that's just confirmation bias to use adoption statistics to support the thesis. Like, well, that's true, but you also have to think about the fact that speculation and store of value are part of the use cases themselves. So let's take a look at what's going on with the price. So we are at $3,938, relatively flat over the weekend. Here we were on Friday. Here again on Monday. Typically is kind of how ETH tends to trade. We kind of make leaps, and then it kind of gets boring and plateaus and flattens out for a while, then something happens. Of course, my bias right now is saying that we trend upward. What are my other kind of reasons for thinking that, in addition to everything I'm talking about in this video? Well, I think the psychology of the crypto market's definitely still following Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been above $51,000 for, has it been 24 hours yet? Not quite 24 hours. But Bitcoin looks like this is the first time we've seen significant level above $50,000 for more than like a few hours since we broke all-time highs, which means Bitcoin is looking like it's kind of wanting to do its thing. And if Bitcoin decides it wants to do its thing and the rest of the crypto market follows, then I also stand to reason in that regard that we'd probably see ETH kind of do its thing as well. We've seen other major caps like Cardano, Solana, others break their all-time highs before Bitcoin. So no guarantee on if ETH does it before Bitcoin, et cetera, but I do think we're going to see another ETH all-time high relatively soon in the grand scheme of things. Of course, not financial advice, not telling you to buy or sell any cryptocurrency based on that opinion. It is just my opinion, but that's what I think is going to happen. Okay, so let's see. We got another pretty big evidence of adoption in cryptocurrencies. What's been happening on the Ethereum network and others just making ripples throughout the mainstream world. Of course, NFTs are huge. I think a lot of us, myself included, underestimated the impact of NFTs on the overall on the overall crypto space. Okay. Because, about this time last year, kind of what was really at the forefront of everyone's mind is a decentralized finance, or DeFi. And DeFi is awesome. I think it's a huge use case with a ton of potential long term. But I think people underestimated NFTs in a lot of ways. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that if people knew what was going to happen with NFTs, we would have seen a complete run on something like CryptoPunks this time last year, when you could have purchased them for, I don't know, like $500 or something like that. How'd you turn $500 into 6, maybe even 7 figures? It'd be pretty crazy. But I don't think we really properly estimated the amount of impact of NFTs on the culture, for sure. Because we're starting to see CNN. We just saw a CNN story about NFTs. They're back big time. It's a report on NFTs. They actually have some statistics on the NFT market itself in terms of daily sales. So we peaked in August at close to $1 billion. I think this is based on the OpenSea sales, maybe. Yeah, monthly sales on OpenSea. So, it's making waves. And I think this is also evidence from sort of anecdotal experience that I have, which is, a lot of people who I know sort of outside the crypto space, just, personal connections, people who aren't necessarily plugged into what's going on with blockchain technology. Whenever we talk about blockchain or crypto, almost everybody asks me about NFTs. Almost nobody asked me about DeFi. So it's sort of like that's the thing that sort of has hooked a lot of people in more than decentralized finance or DeFi. I think it makes sense because, when you started getting into what's happening in DeFi right now, outside of just basic payments, when you're talking about, yields, you're talking about advanced financial instruments that are being rebuilt on the blockchain, that's a really smaller set of people. I mean, think about everyday people that you might interact with. How many of them have ever traded options before? Like barely anybody, probably, unless you hang out with, all finance people or something like that. Or maybe you have a very wealthy, social circle or something like that. That might be a different story. But generally speaking, most people, finance is a much smaller circle of people than might have a collectible or a piece of digital art or somebody who might be attracted to NFTs. But we are seeing more and more of this bubble up. Yesterday, we saw crypto on the front page in the New York Times. Okay. So this is on the Sunday edition, but Bitcoin, it's the first story about Bitcoin. Bitcoin uses more electricity than many countries. How is that possible? So crypto banking and decentralized finance explains. We do see DeFi on the cover of New York Times as well. Okay, and then we see 2009 computer versus a 2021 computer. I believe it's supposed to be a Bitcoin mining rig. So I think they're calling out the fact that you could mine Bitcoin on a personal computer back in the day, and then now it takes this massive, rig of computers to produce a Bitcoin block. So, yeah, of course, this is what gets engagement for sure. Sort of the triggered energy kind of argument about Bitcoin. So, I mean, we talked about this. Oh, here's another one. Crypto's rapid move into banking elicits alarm in Washington. I guess I missed this one. So this is the kind of more engaging headline. The top left real estate here. So it's pretty interesting to see what aspects get featured on the front page here. It's pretty interesting about the energy debate. I've seen some interesting coverage on this for sure. Of course, at the end of the day, on this channel, there's some pretty easy ways to sidestep the Bitcoin energy debate, which is basically talking about blockchains that use proof of stake. Proof of stake is more energy efficient in the first place, so you can kind of completely circumvent the argument. The other counter argument, though, is something like Bitcoin, if proof of work is maintained. One counter argument that's seen floating around there, and I don't know if it I haven't seen the math to check this out, if it just sounds convenient or if it actually is true. But if you take it at face value, like a lot of the argument behind the Bitcoin energy usage is if the things that Bitcoin could replace, the amount of energy that they take to produce the same benefit, that Bitcoin could provide the same benefit and be a net reduction in energy, even if the Bitcoin energy efficiency was not improved as is. So something to think about if people, if people's first argument is, oh, you're into Bitcoin, so you hate the environment. It's like, well, you got to think about these other things here. Because trust me, like the like this sentiment right here is like what's behind this sentiment is to now basically label you as anti-environment if you're pro Bitcoin. That's like what it's designed to do. So speaking of NFTs, we do see more about GameStop getting into the NFT space, and this could be a big deal. Because, of course, GameStop has now become kind of a cultural icon ever since the big GameStop short squeeze happened earlier this year. But we're seeing GameStop launching an NFT platform and more details on it. Okay, so the news of the GameStop launching an NFT platform broke back in July, but after digging a little deeper, I've connected the dots and something even bigger. So there's some speculation here for sure. But we are seeing this, right? If you check the link, we're seeing the game change the game, nft.gamestop.com. So this is quite mysterious. We don't know exactly what this is going to be, but they said they're building a team. All right. So we welcome exceptional engineers, Solidity, React, Python, designers, gamers, marketers, community leaders. If you want to join our team, send your profile or something you've built to NFT team. Yeah, this is a big deal. This is quite a big Easter egg. All right, so another potential Easter egg happening on the Twitter space. We'll see if this ends up happening or not. Is basically Twitter allowing you to add your Bitcoin and Ethereum address to your profile. So there's a little bit of speculation on this, but this is the same person who leaked the recent Bitcoin payments page on a Twitter image. So basically, what happened was we saw this account here leak the information about Bitcoin payments with on Twitter with the Lightning Network. The same type of thing here that looks like they were going to add support for Ethereum addresses as well. So there's some speculation here. We don't know if this is official news, but if we actually do see this type of thing roll out into Twitter, we can see micropayments or tipping or whatever it is based upon Twitter, and that could be pretty crazy. Because of course we are seeing more and more adoption of social networks with Web 3.0 and sort of experiments in that and what that looks like. Because there's a huge pot of somebody to really crack this code. We've seen different experiments in the past where essentially you have, social networks try to introduce financial incentives. Some of them have been more successful than others. Some of not anybody really has been super successful in terms of being competitive with actual big social network giants today. But we do see others like Aave, potentially launching social network protocols. We also see traditional social networks like Twitter talking about creating some sort of decentralized social media initiative as well. So one really exciting prospect that I see about Web 3.0 social networks is basically decoupling protocols from applications themselves. So essentially, this could look like having decentralized social media protocols that you can build on however you want to. So you could build new social networks out of a protocol that lives in the blockchain. You could have multiple different consumer applications to try to combat the problem of censorship. So instead of having censorship at the app layer, instead of censorship at the protocol layer, like on the back end, you'd have censorship at the app layer, and you could have different applications built upon the same protocol to compete with one another to keep everybody in check about censorship. You could opt into seeing certain things. You could have different options for having, algorithmic timelines versus linear timelines versus all this type of stuff to cater more towards end users' preference. So let's see here. We got some questions in the chat. So Ethereum price next year, higher than it is today. Let's see here. Efficiency and green energy usage will improve over time. I can see that. Let's see here. Somebody says proof of work is safer. Proof of stake will lead to centralization. I think proof of stake is pretty. Here's why I think the proof of stake is fairly decentralized. Because basically a lot of people who are going to be staking on Ethereum 2.0 have had a long time to accumulate ETH. Okay, there will be a higher number of people who are kind of validators and staking on ETH 2.0 who have been around for a long time, but those people also have a lot more skin in the game. It will be very expensive to start a validator whenever ETH 2.0 launches, assuming that the price increases and it's higher than what it is today, or even if it is as high as it is today. So that's going to be very expensive, but I guess the point is it was not always expensive, relatively speaking, on the grand scheme of things. So let's see here. So Mrs. Solana, what do I think really is? So I got a video about Solana coming out, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and check it out. So you have to have a minimum of 32 ETH to stake. Is that correct? So to run a full validator, yes, that's the requirement. You will see services that let you stake with less, where basically staking pools. That's definitely an option, but in order to run the validator itself, you have to do that. Now that's by design though in the Ethereum ecosystem, because the whole design is that you have to have skin in the game to run a node, and that you don't have staking delegation at the actual protocol layer itself. Because when you introduce staking delegation at the protocol layer itself, that's actually something that can definitely lead to more centralization, because when hardware requirements for running a validator become much higher, or it's just a pain, then what are people going to do? They're going to stop running validators and they're just going to delegate the stake to somebody else. And then so what happens when nobody wants to run a node anymore? Then somebody who has a strong incentive to see the network succeed, it's not as strong as having to actually run a validator yourself in order to stake natively. But by the same token, you could just say, well, what happens when nobody wants to do that? Then they're just going to join like Coinbase staking, all that type of stuff. The difference is you're always going to get a higher ROI on staking when you do it natively. Okay. So that's the financial incentive, is to actually run it. And so you might say, well, that's a marginal difference. It's true, but when you're talking about people who want to run stake a large amount, or that maybe they've seen a ton of appreciation in their actual cryptocurrency, then that marginal difference can be worth it. So let's see here. I'm a .NET developer. Should I learn ETH for .NET or go with React or Angular? I'm assuming you're talking about, wanting to work with just Ethereum in general. So if you're wanting to work with Ethereum, then I would definitely concentrate on working with a modern front-end framework that's widely used in the Ethereum ecosystem. Why do you need Infura to enable communications between Web 2 and Web 3? So you don't need Infura necessarily, you just need access to an Ethereum node. Most people don't want to run an Ethereum node for development purposes, and so that's why you have access to Infura. It's an Ethereum node as a service. You don't have to run one yourself. You can just pay somebody else to do it, or get access to a link for free, just develop basic applications. And that's why it's there. But if you're going to use the blockchain, you have to talk to a node on the blockchain itself, and that's the whole point. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That helps videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fascinated with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a massive shortcut entirely, I can show you how to become a blockchain master step-by-step, start to finish, over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. Until next time, thanks for watching.